And it happened late one afternoon when David rose from his couch and was walking about on the roof of the king's house that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. David sent someone to inquire about the woman. It was reported, "This is Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Where is the woman bathing? Typically, she gets associated with being on top of the roof. David's on top of a roof. If you see paintings of this or movies, typically she is also on her rooftop bathing. But all it tells us is that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. So Does this lead us to believe she's on the roof too, or would she be somewhere else?
Historically, people have confused this passage, either thinking that she's on the roof and David isn't, or that they're both on their, personal roofs of their houses. But the text doesn't say anything about where she is. And if we're just looking at the text, then we cannot make that assumption that she's on the roof of her house. And even if she was on the roof of her house, she would not be doing anything wrong. She would be technically in the privacy of her own home. Mm-hmm. But however, I have seen really no evidence, archaeological, ethnographical, or otherwise, where people would just bathe publicly on the roof of their house. You have to remember, this is a society who has a very high honor and shame aspect to it. Mm-hmm. And nudity is not acceptable in this world. To be nude, especially seen nude in public, is a very shameful thing. And so while, of course, these houses did not have their own private bathrooms, they often did have their own courtyards or forecourt, which is like a courtyard in front of the house, and would be doing these things in the privacy of their own homes. And we also can't imagine that she's, sitting in a big bathtub or a ritual bath, because these ritual baths, a mikvah or mikvaot in the plural, they don't really come into being until much later in Israel's history, predominantly post-exile. So she's not at like some public bath. There was no such thing in Iron Age Israel. More than likely, she's and this was, again, before the purity ritual baths. And that, is a aspect to it that's pretty important. Yeah. That what she's doing the bathing for, which we'll come back to that, I'm sure. But, my guess is that she, from what I know of, from what I read in the text and what I know archaeologically, and she's probably within the privacy of her own home in some way. But David's location, being on the roof of his house, and it's thought that the elite people, and typically that would be your kings and the royal family, the nobles, would live on the heights, if you will, and being on the heights, and then and everything sloping, quite steeply downwards all around you, it wouldn't be a surprise that if he was sitting on the roof of his house, he could see pretty much anything. Mm-hmm. So these interpretations that have shown Bathsheba bathing completely nude in public, or on the roof of her house, kind of being this temptress, seductress, hey, David, look at me, are completely just foolish. In no way does the text, give us those kind of indications. And so far, David has done nothing wrong.
And similar to our mention of the way that using the little descriptors in the text can really push your reading, yes. If your association with this is she is on the roof, that can really change how you perceive things coming forward. Where if she's in the privacy of her own home, if she's in a private space bathing and he is looking in, suddenly, he's the geography makes this available and he's opening, but is he transgressing? Is he looking somewhere he shouldn't? We maybe start to ask questions of what David's doing, what she's doing, but she's not explicitly in the text, right? Out there in front of everyone, right. in the eyes for all to see. And our friend Josephus adds a little line to this too, where he says, right, in old Josephus's rendition, who Josephus isn't a friend of women, we should say, right? He has many things to say there, but when he's describing her, he says that she was washing herself in her own house. So even Josephus is kind of putting her there, but the later traditions pushing her closer to these temptress women, moving David away, some from this difficulty, have really taken hold of the imagination with this scene.
Yeah. And I would agree with that, because especially for people who come from faith backgrounds, who they've heard for so long that David is a man after God's own heart, he can't have done wrong. She had to have tempted him into this. And I would disagree with that interpretation. And then when you see, like, I don't know, pictures of this, paintings or art, they always show Bathsheba on the roof. Like, wait a minute, did you read the passage first?
They don't want to have it with David like peeking over the fence looking in, which might be more of the feel you get if you're putting
Tom.
her. And peeping David if she's inside her house.